Welcome back, children, to your economics class. So, last class we had started the chapter Sectors of Indian Economy, and we learned how sectors of Indian economy can be divided on the basis of the nature of the activity, ownership, and how they are categorized. We started with how sectors of the Indian economy can be classified on the basis of the nature of the activity. We learned about three sectors: primary, secondary, and tertiary. The last topic we did last time was interdependence of these three sectors. You all know that these three sectors are interrelated. One sector needs the help of other sector to carry out production. So now we will see an example. You all had already seen it. We'll see another example of how the sectors are related together in production of cotton cloths, which is a part of fashion industry. So over there we have the primary sector, that is cotton is grown and picked on a cotton farm. That would be the primary activity. Secondary will be when the cotton is processed to cloth, which is in turn sewn into clothing. And tertiary will be when these clothes are sold in the shop, when cotton clothes are sold in the shop. In the process, many other services like banking, transportation, communication, storage are also required. Okay, so that will be the service sector, which will again fall in tertiary sector. All right, so this was a sum up of last time. Moving on, I want to speak about comparing these three sectors. So the various production activities in primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors, they produce large number of goods and services. Now we have to see how much such goods and services are produced and how many people work in each sector. In an economy, some sectors might dominate and as compared to others. Economics suggests that value of goods and services should be used rather than adding the actual number. So what they are suggesting is the value of goods and services should be used instead of adding the actual product. How can you compare these three sectors? Because all three sectors produce large number of goods and services. But if you are to compare on the basis of how much they are producing, it wouldn't be a great idea. So the economists have suggested that we look at the values of the goods and services produced rather than the actual number. So for example, 10,000 kgs of wheat is sold at 7 rupees per kg. The value of wheat would be 70,000. And the value of 6,000 coconuts sold at 10 rupees per piece would be 60,000. So the value of goods and services in three sectors are calculated and then they are added up. Now, not every good or service that is produced and sold needs to be counted. Only the final goods and services are counted. So we'll talk about this. In any account, not every good or services has to be included when you are adding up. Only the goods produced and sold need to be counted. Example, a farmer who's selling wheat to a flour mill for let's say 8 rupees per kg. And this mill will make the wheat and he's going to sell flour to a biscuit company at let's say 10 rupees per kg. And now the biscuit company is going to use that flour and sugar and oil to make 5 packets of biscuits. Okay, and it is going to sell the biscuits in the market to the consumer for 75 rupees, that is 15 rupees per packet. Now biscuits are the final goods that reach the consumer. So, as compared to final goods, goods like wheat flour are called intermediate goods. So, intermediate goods are goods that are used in producing the final products and services. The goods that help us to produce the final products and services. Now, the value of final goods already includes the value of intermediate goods. So, why do we use the value of only final goods? Because final goods, they are the finished goods which are sold in the market. But intermediate goods are all the goods which are used by the producer for producing other goods. They are known as intermediate goods. And the value of final goods already includes the value of all intermediate goods used in making the final good. So 75 rupees for final good includes the value of flour, that is 10 rupees. So we count the value separately a number of times. The value of final goods and services produced in each sector during a particular year provides for total production of the sector for that year. I repeat, value of final goods and services produced in each sector during one particular year provides the total production of sector for that year. The sum of GDP in all sectors give us what is called as GDP of a country. GDP is gross domestic produce. Gross domestic product or produce. It is the value of all the final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. The GDP of India is prepared by various government departments of all states and union territories. All estimates are added to estimate the GDP. So this is all the intermediate goods: nuts, milk, wheat, sugar, oil, essence, and the final good is biscuit. Now, different goods produced in a sector may be measured in different units like kg, liters, and so you cannot add it together. So to find the total production of a sector, monetary value of the goods and services is added up rather than the actual numbers. Okay, so value of wheat over here will be 4 lakh rupees because it's 50,000 kgs and 8 rupees per kg. Now, while calculating the total production of the sector, the value of only final goods is included and not the intermediate goods. The value of final goods already includes the value of intermediate goods. So, if we also count the value of intermediate goods, then it will lead to a double counting, and that is counting the value of good more than once. So if the farmer sells wheat at 8 rupees per kg, flour mill is grinding it and selling it at 10 rupees per kg, and biscuit company is selling that biscuit packet at rupees 15 per kg, only the value of biscuit company, that is 15 rupees per kg, will be counted because it includes all the values of wheat and flour already. Okay. Now GDP, the value of goods and services produced in each sector in a particular year is calculated and added up. The sum of the production in three sectors give us total production in a country, which is called as gross domestic product. The GDP is the value of final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. This is a very important definition. Please learn it. GDP is the value of final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. Now, how do you measure GDP? You will take the sum of production of all the three sectors and it will tell you the total production in the country. This is called as GDP. So there is an organization in India, GDP is measured by Central Statistical Organization, CSO. This organization collects data with the help of various government departments of all states, central government, and union territories, and it gives us the GDP. Now, there's a change in importance of sectors. In the initial stages, primary sector was the most vital sector of economic activity in India. But as agriculture prospered, production of food increased, many people took up other activities. Craftsmen and traders also increased. Buying and selling activities has also increased. There are many transportation, administration, army. So most people at this time were employed in the primary sector. Now, over a long time, manufacturing became more important. More and more factories started to develop. People now started working in factories in large numbers. Secondary sector became the most popular in production and employment. This trend changed. Gradually, in the last 100 years, there has been a shift from secondary to tertiary sector in the developed states. Service or tertiary sector has now become the most important. This pattern is observed in most of the countries now. So the shift between the sectors can be seen in two terms. In terms of the share of GDP of each sector, in terms of employment in each sector. So in terms of share of each sector in GDP, the shift has seen from primary to secondary to tertiary. That is how much it is contributing to GDP. This shift we have seen from primary to secondary to tertiary. But in terms of employment in each sector, the primary sector continues to employ the maximum people. While there has been a change in the share of the three sectors in GDP, a similar change has not been taken place in employment. Okay, so if you look at this graph over here, which is also there in your textbooks on page 24, this graph shows the production of goods and services in three sectors. It is shown in the year 1973 and 2003 on the screen. In your textbook, you have 1970-71 to 2010-11. You can see how the total production has grown over the years. So this is the GDP by primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors, showing the share of each sector. Share of agricultural sector has decreased and that of the tertiary sector has increased tremendously. Like you can see in 1973, the ratio of the green color, that portion is bigger in the entire bar. But if you look at the 2003, the tertiary sector is the biggest, it's the largest. So it's contributing much more to the GDP. So which was the largest? There are some questions in your textbook that I would like you to answer in your textbook itself on page 24. Which was the largest producing sector in 1970-71? Which is the largest producing sector in 2010 and 11? Can you say which sector has grown most over the 40 years? What was the GDP of India in 2011? These questions you'll have to find the answers and write it down, okay, in your textbook. So which sector do you think has grown the most over the last few years? Let's see the share of sectors in the GDP. So over here, you can see that over the years, production has increased in all the sectors, but it has increased maximum in the tertiary sector. Yes, primary sector produces 1/4 of the GDP, and secondary and tertiary sector produces 3/4 of the GDP. Secondary sector looks almost the same, 2020. The primary sector seems to have decreased from 45 to 25, but the tertiary sector has increased from 35 to 55. So share of the agricultural sector in GDP has decreased and that of tertiary sector has increased. In any country, services like police, telegraph, post, bank, insurance, these are all basic. In a developing country like India, government has to make provision for these services. Development of agriculture and industry has led to this growth of services like trade and transport. Now let's look at the employment, share of sectors in employment. Over here, you can see that tertiary sector has increased from 15 to 22, and primary sector has not seen a great decline. Primary sector still employs more than half of the people. Secondary sector and tertiary sector employs less than half of the people. Though the share of primary sector in GDP has declined, yet it is employing maximum number of people. So most of the people are employed in agriculture. Since the income has increased, people have started demanding more services like eating out and shopping. Rise of information and technology has also increased the service sector. These are all the reasons why the service sector's contribution is higher in the GDP. Okay, now looking at this, we know the importance of tertiary sector has increased in production. And there are four main reasons. So, number one, why does primary sector still continue to employ maximum number of people? In India, there has been a change in the share of the three sectors in GDP. But same shift cannot be seen in the case of employment. Why? More than half of the workers are working in the primary sector and yet producing only a quarter of GDP. These are some questions we can think about. I was telling you why has the tertiary sector gained so much importance. So services like police, telegraph, banking, insurance, these are very basic and they should be there. So in a developing country like India, government is now making provisions for these services. And the development of agriculture and industry has also led to a growth of services, especially trade and transport. Then income has increased. People have started demanding more services and they eat out, they shop, tourism. So service sector has increased. Rise of information and technology has further revolutionized the service sector. These are all the reasons why the share of tertiary sector in GDP has increased. Now, if you look at these three questions, and can we stay for like, can you all like pause and think of the reasons why primary sector still continues to employ maximum number of people? In India, there has been a change in the share of three sectors in GDP. The same shift is not there in the employment. Still, more than half of people are working in the primary sector, but they produce only a quarter of GDP. Why? Because enough job opportunities were not created in the secondary and tertiary sectors through the output of the two, although the output of the two sectors went up. An existence of underemployment and disguised unemployment in primary sector. The primary sector employs more people in agriculture than required. Even if you're going to remove a few people, the production will not fall. In this sector, people appear to work, but they are working less than their potential, and so they are not fully employed. So there exists underemployment and disguised unemployment, due to which the contribution of primary sector to GDP is less, even though it employs more number of people. Okay. So with this thought, I'm going to end the class. I have asked you all to answer a few questions in your textbook. Also, there is one more table in your textbook. I want you all to fill that up. It's on page 21. Fill that table up. Answer the questions on page 24, all in your textbook. And in your notebooks, I want you all to make a diagram that shows the interdependence of all the three sectors: primary, secondary, and tertiary. You can draw the example over here that I shown you all today, cotton, or you can select any other. Okay, make a diagram and show this, how the three sectors are interdependent on each other. With this, I end today's class. Stay home, stay safe, take care, and keep learning.